Welcome back to the More Than Different podcast. Might need to start calling it the More Than Different podcast show. I think I like that ring. See?
No, I think it's an extra word. It's
All
the
right.
More Different podcast. You know what I mean? It's entertainment, but it's a podcast, not a show.
All right. We'll keep it the More Than Different podcast, back with another episode. Recording this on Monday evening, Martin Luther King Day.
January 16th, baby.
One of our pillars of More Than Different, and our phrase, obviously, we say appreciate, celebrate, elevate. MLK. Certainly, this is a day of celebration. Someone who epitomizes what it means to be more than different, as ambitious as they come, and unapologetically authentic. Had courage, right, and was aimed to just create peace in this world, and his actions and his words live on forever. So happy MLK Day of celebration. Great day to record an MTD podcast, ain't it?
Yep. Happy MLK Day. I mean, talk about elevating just the people in, a whole country and a world around you for generations to come. Like fundamentally changing the way people think about others.
Right.
I think it's something that you can't overlook. And he's obviously a martyr, and he's a legend. And hopefully we try to carry his work moving forward. But he deserves all the shout outs in the world. We can make a million podcasts about the man because he's a legend. And shout out to the Boston Common for coming out with that new sculpture, huh?
Yeah, the Embrace. It came out Friday, but you needed like tickets to get exclusive access. But today was the first day they made it public. It is very profound and symbolic. It symbolizes MLK hugging his wife, Coretta Scott King. They met in Boston. Both went to Boston University. So, and actually, I was reading something. MLK gave a speech to galvanize people of Boston about the civil rights movement in the Boston Common in 1955. So there's some rich history for you. And now 57 years later, he's got a statue. Is that right? No, 67 years later, he's got a statue in his name and in his wife's name. That is what you call living a legacy. Rich history.
Rich history should be a song name, or like that should be our podcast. Like Rich History, that just sounds smooth. I like that.
Smooth. So there was a Kendrick Lamar song. What was it? It was Rich Spirits, which is a good one too. But moving on, C-Mac, I know we were talking earlier, and just you brought up a great little a great reminder. I actually have a few friends and just people in my life, and everyone goes through it at some point, but you articulated it better than I did.
Yeah, definitely. So what I think we wanted to talk about on this episode is basically your approach to life. And I know you don't like me kind of talking in this broad sense of life. No, I know you had a better way to summarize it, but
it's fine.
Basically, what we want to touch on, and I think it's really important to focus on when you're going through your journey through life, when you're growing up as a teenager, your early 20s, your late 20s, 30s, even as you grow past that, is ensuring that you're consistent in all aspects of life with respect to your work ethic and your mindset and your approach. So what I mean by that is, say you're in high school and you're on the track team, right? Are you going to be the first person on the track and the last one to leave? The first person in the weight room, the last one to leave, but get a tardy slip for class every day and sleep in and not get any work done? That means that you're inconsistent, you're unpredictable, you're not trustworthy, you're not reliable. The alternative of that, which is what we are alluding to here, is being that person that's consistent across the board. So the way you approach track, or whatever extracurricular activity that you are indulged in, if your mindset is, I'm going to try and be the best I can at this, then yes, you should have that same mindset with school. You should have that same mindset as the parent. You should have that same mindset, as the professor, etc. And so that's kind of the basis of what I wanted to touch on today. And I think it's really important to understand that, some people are like, you go through stages as an athlete growing up. You're like, all right, I'm an athlete. I'm only an athlete for the next 5 years. All I'm going to focus on is this. I mean, there's a lot more to life than just, having one structured athletic team.
Right.
You probably practice maybe 2 hours out of the day. If you're at WPI, it's a lot more and you're grinding, but there's a lot more time out of the day. There's a majority of the time out of your day spent elsewhere. And so if that like 10, 15% of your life, you have this dog in you, you want to be great, but the other 80, 75% of your life is you're just like cruising, you're in cruise control. That's a majority of your life, man. You're blowing that away. So trying to change people's mindsets and the way they think, and kind of trying to harp on the elevate train, like elevating yourself in every aspect of life rather than trying to elevate yourself in one aspect. We try to promote just being well-rounded. And I think it's a good way to start, a good way to think.
The elevate train, I like that. I want to stay on the elevate train. Why do you think this is such a common theme and trap almost that people fall into at whatever stage of their life? They eventually come to the epiphany that, oh, I gotta have an alternate plan, or I have to shift my gears to something else. Because sports for us, and I think a lot of the listeners could relate, because I'm sure we have a lot of people who've played some sports, but obviously you can interchange any endeavor. But yeah, you find something you love and you care about, and you put a lot into it, you sacrifice, you almost reveal. I was thinking about this earlier, but when you really care about something, or even a person, when you care about something so much, you almost surprise yourself how far you're willing to go to, whether it's nurture a relationship, whether it's elevate your status in a company, or whether, as I said, in a sport, just get better day by day. You almost like, wow, I'm willing to get up at 5:30, get extra shots up, or I'm willing to, stay or come early, stay late, that kind of person. And then all of a sudden you go into other aspects of your life and you're just the polar opposite. Why do you think that is so common?
Well, I think in the early stages of life, you're put into places and you are spending time trying to figure yourself out. What do you like? What you don't like? And so sometimes you might get registered for something that you didn't register for. Your family did, your parents did, etc. I think when you get older, you realize your time's a lot more valuable. So you want to spend it doing things that you're very passionate about, that you love. And it hits everybody at a different time when they realize that you figure out what you want to do. You figure out what interests you. You figure out where your passions lie. And when you figure that out, it happens at different times and different points for everybody. Like when I was in high school, I wouldn't love to be in school all the time. But when I got to college and over the next couple of years, obviously I decided to focus on engineering. I had a big passion for it. And yeah, it was tough. And there were times where I was like, I don't want to get this work done right now, but it was a passion of mine. And so I want to put that same mindset I had in basketball into engineering. But I think it's just in the sense of you're put in a lot of different places, and obviously you're required to take all these different classes in school, and maybe you're trying out a bunch of different sports, or you're just testing out. You kind of just get a feel for who you are. And so I think at a young age, you definitely fall into this place of this is what I love. I'm going to do this all the time as much as I can. And then everything else, I'm just going to do it because I have to. But at some point you figure out, hopefully people figure out what they love and try and balance their life around that and, other passions and hobbies. And,
Yeah, I'll go right off of that. I think a part of the trap is also, the certain interest you have, or that major passion that you find, it then becomes the perception you have of yourself and kind of how you identify who you are. And that boxes you in as an individual, and both in the way you see yourself and the way you then let others see you, because you kind of only portray yourself in one way. And I've seen it so often. You mentioned it, but yeah, you're someone who works their tail off in their sport, and then just kind of is fine cutting corners in the classroom, or just lazy. And it's like, so in other words, your perception and how people perceive and how you perceive yourself is very one dimensional. And a lot of part of our mission statement, we obviously say being more than different is about relentlessly trying to maximize your potential. And everyone is so multidimensional. And if you're maximizing your potential in one thing, all right, then why can't you translate that into other aspects of your life? So only seeing yourself for a certain talent or endeavor, when we extend well beyond that. And we should embrace that people can perceive us in a multitude of ways that aren't just, oh, he's an athlete, or he's a engineer, he's a musician, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But I think that's
let me add some color to that. But it's a good point you raised. I mean,
add some color to that.
let me throw some color on that, baby. So for example, I think it's easy to, if you approach one aspect of your life, like school, for example, if you approach it by being lazy, cutting corners, just getting the bare minimum done, you come home, maybe you give the bare minimum to the chores around the house, right? Then it's a snowball effect. Then you give the bare minimum of relationships with your friends.
Snowball effect, yeah.
So you get comfortable with cutting corners, or having this habit of approaching one part of your life one way. And once you get comfortable with that, then like some doors open up where you can start to apply that to every other aspect of your life, whether you know it or whether it's a subconscious action. So, I mean, we talked about it. We've had a habits podcast, and it all comes together. Everything's tied together.
It does. And I'll even add this on. You mentioned the habits podcast. We just also wrote a blog. Rowan, one of our blog writers, and myself, is finding authentic habits. Now, with that, being authentic, it frees you. You become yourself. You don't think, you don't overthink things. You're just yourself. And that's effortless. And that is like the flow state of living. And so in the same way, if you can find habits or interests that feel authentic and real, then yeah, you're then more likely to translate that work ethic and that ambition and desire to not cut corners toward those certain habits or little interests. And so it is about, it's your lifestyle, it's your habits, but it is also exploring and figuring out what works for you, because there's not one single paradigm for how to elevate your life. But when you find that one thing you're really passionate about, within that, you discover the paradigm for success in many regards. It's like, work hard, be disciplined. It's not reinventing the wheel here. So then why don't you then try to translate that into different pockets of your life, ones that you can create? I thought that's worth mentioning, especially as you said, how it all just intertwines. It really does.
Yeah, good point. I mean, if you think about it, if you when you're trying to become a good parent, a great parent, for myself, for example, for myself, I've always strived to be the best athlete I could be. I just love sports way too much. I'd always want a basketball in my hand, football in my hand, baseball in my hand, bat in my hand, soccer ball on my feet.
Golf club now.
Yeah, golf club now. I just have a passion for sports. Just love it. Just love the team aspect. Love the um, just the thrill of it all. So I always wanted to be the best version of myself in that aspect. And then school came around, and it was the standard around the house to try your hardest, give your all. So I had that backing me to kind of have that same mindset. Now, from obviously, what I think, when you think about it, is that, what coach, if you've ever had a great coach, it'd be weird to have a coach that's unbelievable at his job, but be a very bad parent. If you have someone that's really invested in the work they do, but not invested in, the other 75% of their life, which is, I'm sure, raising their family and supporting them, then is that person someone you really want to play for? Because those that's something you don't want to pick up and inherit. So for me, obviously, it's something that I constantly try to work with, but hey, I'm not perfect by no means. We spread this message. We try to paint this picture of this lifestyle, and by no means are we doing this perfectly.
No,
Right?
we're figuring out along the way. I
We
think
are, but I think
yeah.
I think what we're going through, a lot of other people are going through. So I think just the fact that we're expressing it is,
Yeah,
hopefully
it's
gets
our,
other people.
I think half of it is just understanding it, articulating it, and allowing others to then say, I'm not the only one. Because yeah, we're in a state of figuring it out, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think life is all one big enigma, and you got to solve puzzles every day, and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't is part of life. And I think that is how you can maximize who you are and really figure out who you are. A lot of people hear the phrase finding yourself. Yeah, you have to find yourself. And part of finding yourself is figuring out what you love, and also figuring out how
What
you,
your priorities are, man.
yeah,
Exactly.
right. And then how you approach that.
Yeah.
And once you figure out the right approach, that's just interchangeable. And that's why I think a lot of people, they could praise themselves, look in the mirror and say, I worked really hard at this or that. And then look at other aspects and say, geez, I cut a lot of corners. I think it is worth raising the point of, it would be foolish to think people say have balance in all aspects of your life. Well, that's also unrealistic. You can't have balance in all aspects of your life. Certainly not if you want to separate yourself from the pack.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give at some point. And so we're saying that the balance part right now, it's all right. I'm a college student, college basketball player. You're a full-time worker, real world, and then it's part-time MTD. Okay, well, how long can we sustain that? Not forever. And so this idea of balance, you can't. But I will say, when we're putting time into this, we have an idea for what it takes. We know what it'll take, and so then it's about just translating that. And consistency is everything, and that's probably our biggest flaw for the brand sometimes with you and I is consistency. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, approaching it the same way. So, but you also need to figure out that you have 24 hours in a day. There's only so many things you can focus on and put your attention to. So, prioritizing exactly what is most important and allotting that time and passion into whatever those priorities are. And by no means is it strictly based off of hobbies and work and business. I think what people get caught up on is and I've gotten caught up on it myself, I've fallen victim to it, is what you're trying to strive to be in the work life, in the industry life, in business, career wise. You want to be able to translate that passion and work ethic into the relationships you're building. I think that's very important. I've fallen victim to it, and yeah, I'm definitely actively working through that. But you just got to figure out that balance. But when you do put time, when you do say, hey, this is something I want to prioritize, and you better put your best foot forward, because I fucking hate when people don't do that. And I've done it, but fuck, man, if you don't put your best foot forward in everything, like, what's the point in doing it?
Yeah, what are you doing? And it
What's the
just
point in
leaves
doing
you
it?
with a boatload of regret. And that is one of the
How many
worst.
lives do we get? We get a couple?
Not a couple,
No, we don't get a couple.
just one of them.
This isn't Puss in Boots. You don't get 9 lives.
No, you don't get 9 lives. It's one life. So there's a lot of truth to what we're saying. I think undoubtedly it's not rocket science. I just think it's a epiphany that everyone has at a different phase in their life. And it's something that is almost, it's pretty incessant. It's never ending. It keeps going. You have to, you grow out of things. Think about it. At some point, and you just did, you finished your college basketball career. That now is in the future for me. And so it starts to be like, okay, I love this. I'm going to keep putting my time into it, because I want to be the best while I'm doing it. Try to be, but I'm also not foolish enough to think that the ball is going to keep bouncing forever. And so you start to slowly, even gradually, start transferring that same ambition and motivation into other little parts of your life. And that way, once that shift comes, I think people have these identity crises when they all of a sudden they can't identify with how they're accustomed to identifying.
It's a great point. And I think when you have these crises about, struggling internally, I think a lot that goes into that is how you've approached things. If you've given a half-ass effort, you think you've wasted a bunch of time, and you just think, oh, like, I've been doing nothing this whole time. What have I done? What have I accomplished? Brendan, I know the ball's not going to be bouncing forever, but if you in 4 years say, hey, I gave that whole thing my all, like, I worked my balls off, then, when that ball stops bouncing, and it won't stop bouncing, you'll be playing in leagues past your college days. But I know what you mean. You're going to be satisfied regardless of what the result is. If you know in yourself that you gave it your all, you're going to be satisfied. And that's, I think, what we need to start to work towards translating to more than different, because, we've put some sweat equity into this, but man, there's a lot more sweat equity that needs to get put into it, because we've seen the grind, and people haven't seen the grind that gets put in just in the athletics and hoops on our end. And there's some fucking sweat equity into that.
Yeah.
Tell you that. It's a different type, but just thinking on our perspective, focusing on that. But what I wanted to get back to is understanding. We talk a lot about just our athletic lives, and then more than different. But I want to harp on the fact, you approach your life where be selfish in the sense of needing to help develop your career, and working on your hobbies, and turning those into career ventures. At the same time, be a team player and really be selfless in helping to develop and grow friendships in whatever shape or form they are. Because those friendships and connections could really help you down the line. And then outside of that, it's just, it makes life a lot better when you put into kind of your personal life exactly what you put into kind of building stuff with a lot of close people you're around. So I've been harping on it, but I think it's valuable. But nevertheless, man, we're just riding on MTD Ave, baby. That's what we've been doing for a while.
We're on
you know what I mean? We're on cruise
yeah.
control. We're on cruise control down more than different avenue.
Yeah.
Trying to preach this stuff, and by all means, man, we're living it.
Shout
We're
out.
working on it. We're not perfect, but we're trying to live it, baby.
Yeah. Shout out to
Wouldn't be on this pod if we weren't.
Shout out to my ex-girlfriend who got me this. Really a terrific gift.
Shout out to the ex, man. Shout out to the ex.
Shout out to the ex. Wish her the best. I think to wrap up what you said, and it kind of gave me chills as you said it. Yeah, and I think about when my basketball career comes to an end, and having that moment where, yeah, you can stare in the mirror at the person in the mirror and say, I didn't cut a damn corner. I went above and beyond. Damn, like, it hits me when I talk about it, and being able to find peace in something you put so much into. That I think is the goal. If we were to stop doing MTD, I wouldn't have peace right now, because I know there's more we can do, and I know we're going to do it. And I know we'll have that day where we will be able to look in the mirror, and God, I hope, tears of joy, and just think, wow, we kept going. We just kept going. And I think
it's gonna be a lot of long nights and early mornings. You know what I mean?
To stray
it's all
away
about.
from even just the brand, I just encourage others to reflect. We talked about reflection, and in our last podcast was all about reflection. It was a reflection of the brand, but it was also just highlighting the value of reflecting. And I think when you can look back at something you've put a lot into, and you see all that you've gotten out of it, like you said, the relationships, not just your own success, your own growth, but also the people you meet along the way, the bonds that you nurtured and have stayed connected with through it all, you start to say, wow, that was so worth it. Even when it got hard, even when doubt or whatever those battling emotions were that are difficult to combat, you still just kept pushing. And I think the key and the problem we all face, challenge we all face, I should say, is how do we put that into the next thing? Because there's always new opportunities and experiences. We always say appreciate all the opportunities and experiences that come our way. And there's new doors always opening, and a lot of changing and a lot of new, but I think that the paradigm of, like you said, hard work and discipline, and we say ambition and just love for what you do and the people you're around, that'll translate to anything. And I think that's what we're getting at. So
yeah. I mean, definitely in the sense of everything that we're talking about, how you apply that same mindset to every aspect of your life, that same work ethic to every corner, every borough that you feel is valuable enough to allot time out of your day that you'll never get back, right? You can get a lot of stuff back in life. You can't get time back. So that holds the ultimate value. So if you say, all right, I'm going to spend time on this, then why would you not give a good, solid fucking effort into it? Because it's the point. What's the point if you're just going to walk through it and just give a lazy effort? You're not going to get anything out of it. It's just a waste of time. And that's something you can't get back. And I think with that being said, I think we might actually preface the next episode. I don't know. We've obviously touched on it, but managing your time well, right? If you want to apply, if you have a large list of priorities that is really important to you, and you don't feel like you are putting the same effort into every aspect, I think it's just a matter of managing your calendar well, managing your time, right? Maybe you shouldn't be sleeping as much, right? Maybe you should be getting the same amount of sleep, if not more, but not watching as much TV. Last episode, Loki had the TV on in the background. Today, I was like, I can't be doing that. Can't be doing that. So I turned that off. Obviously, the NFL playoffs are on right now, but sacrifice that, baby.
Yeah, that's the word that sums up what you just said, sacrifice. And again, you can't have balance in everything. You can't, but you have control over what you do prioritize, and you might as well maximize it.
Yeah. Last thing, more than different itself. We talk a lot about just the individual growth. More than different to me is not more so based on an individual basis. It's the idea of it. The paradigm is to present this lifestyle, this idea to community. This is a community-based brand and mission and image that we want to send out. Like, we're not trying to just pinpoint one person. This is something that we feel like is parallel the most to tight-knit communities that grow and really care for each other and want to see people get better and grow. And then have those individuals that are really ambitious, that want to push themselves and help their community grow and advance and excel. So a team's only as good as the individual players are, and then how they mesh together. So we want to be able to tell you how, look, this is a good game plan to kind of approach, healthy lifestyle. But on top of that, you need, get around some people, get, the people around you, rally them up and make sure you have a good circle. I know Brennan's talked about a lot, the circle that you surround yourself with. But I'm on a tangent here, but just stressing more than difference. It's a community paradigm and a brand based on community love and growth, and, with the help of very authentic and ambitious individuals. So I think a lot of our podcasts, Brendan, I think we're building up a real healthy playbook here for a lot of people. So hopefully people kind of enjoy what we relay to the folks on the other end.
Absolutely. A lot of good stuff in here. So that wraps it up for this episode. I had one other thing I want to say. Oh, we're thinking about, and I think it's a good idea so that we can understand there's some people who may not be our loyal listeners and don't listen to these pods start to finish, but we may start up a little more than different podcast Instagram page that we can just load up with content and clips and little short nuggets, because there's too much erudition and wisdom coming out of these to not be shed and posted.
Too much.
So I think that may be something we're going to start up soon. Stay tuned for that. And
Free game.
Another episode, and we will be back next week at some point. Appreciate all our listeners. As always, stay more than different. Be authentic. Be ambitious. Peace.